The unexpected patient. The air in New Aurora Colony always carried a metallic tang, but today it was mixed with the acrid smell of burning circuitry. Dr. Harrison Wade's fingers moved with practiced precision across his diagnostic panel as another tremor shook his underground clinic. The colonial settlement's power grid was failing again, and with it, the hopes of many who relied on cybernetic augmentations to survive on this harsh frontier world. Harrison had chosen this life of exile for a reason. After 15 years at the prestigious Quantum Mechanics Institute on Earth, he'd grown weary of bureaucracy dictating who deserved treatment and who didn't. Here on the edge of human space, he could help those truly in need, even if it meant working with salvaged equipment in a converted mining tunnel. The clinic's proximity alert chimed, its tone urgent. Harrison glanced at the security feed and froze. A figure stood at his door, but not the usual rough-hewn miners or weather-beaten farmers he was accustomed to treating. This visitor's skin shimmered with an iridescent purple sheen, marking them as one of the Novaran, a species known for their advanced biotechnology and their recent exodus from their homeworld. "Enter," Harrison called out, already reaching for his advanced diagnostic tools. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing his visitor in full. She stood tall despite her obvious distress, her crystalline cybernetic implants pulsing with an erratic rhythm along her spine and arms. These weren't the crude augmentations he usually dealt with, this was living technology, far beyond anything humans had achieved. "I am Nova," she managed, her translator struggling to convert her harmonic language. "My systems are failing. The other clinics." She stumbled, and Harrison moved quickly to catch her. Her skin was cool to the touch, and he could feel the irregular vibrations of her malfunctioning implants. "They turned you away," Harrison finished for her, already guiding her to his examination table. He'd heard stories about the Novaran refugees, how their complex biotechnology was incompatible with standard human medical care. Most doctors wouldn't even attempt treatment, fearing legal repercussions or technical failures. Nova's crystalline eyes fixed on him, their faceted surfaces reflecting the clinic's harsh lighting. "You understand why I came to the underground clinic?" "To you." It wasn't a question. Harrison nodded as he began his initial scan, watching as holographic readouts painted a complicated picture of failing systems and desperate biological adaptations. "Your people's biotechnology is legendary," Harrison said, focusing on a particularly concerning cluster of neural interfaces. "But these implants, they're not pure Novaran tech, are they? Someone's modified them." "Crudely." Nova's expression tightened. "When we fled, many of us had to accept compromises. Human components, salvaged parts. Anything to maintain basic function." Her voice carried both shame and defiance. "We had no choice." Harrison's hands stilled over his diagnostic panel. The situation was worse than he'd initially thought. The hybrid technology was creating cascade failures throughout her system. Conservative estimates gave her weeks, maybe days, before complete systemic shutdown. "I won't lie to you," he said, meeting her crystalline gaze. "This is beyond anything I've dealt with before. The integration of human and Novaran technology, it's incredibly complex. One wrong move could accelerate the deterioration." "Then I have come to the right place," Nova replied, her translator giving her words an almost musical quality. "I have heard stories about you, Dr. Wade. The human who helps those others won't touch. The one who was banned from Earth's medical community for refusing to follow protocol." Harrison's jaw tightened. His past had a way of following him, even out here on the frontier. "Those stories are true. But they usually leave out the part where my unorthodox methods saved lives." A ghost of a smile crossed Nova's features. "That is precisely why I am here." Her implants flickered again, and she winced. "I have nothing to offer as payment except my knowledge. My people's understanding of biotechnology, I would share it with you, if you help me." Harrison was already moving, gathering equipment and pulling up reference materials on his holographic displays. Keep your secrets for now, he said, his mind racing through potential treatment approaches. Let's focus on keeping you alive first. Though I warn you, my methods might not be what you're used to. Nova watched as he began calibrating his instruments, her crystalline eyes tracking his every movement. I have already trusted human technology once, Doctor. See where it has led me. She gestured to her failing implants. Perhaps it is time to trust a human instead. As Harrison prepared for what would undoubtedly be one of the most challenging cases of his career, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just another patient. The arrival of a Novaran refugee with hybrid technology could change everything, for the colony, for human-alien relations, and for the future of cybernetic medicine itself. What he didn't know yet was that Nova's appearance would also draw attention from those who would rather keep such advancements under strict corporate control. For now, though, Harrison focused on the immediate challenge, saving a life that bridged two worlds, one failing circuit at a time. Trust in metal and flesh. 3 days into Nova's treatment, Harrison's underground clinic had transformed into a research lab that would have made his former colleagues at the Quantum Mechanics Institute jealous. Holographic displays covered the walls, each showing different aspects of Nova's unique biotechnology. The integration between her biological systems and the cybernetic implants was like nothing he'd ever seen, or anything humans had ever achieved. Your cellular structure, Harrison muttered, manipulating a three-dimensional image of Nova's neural pathways, it's actually adapting to the implants. Even the crude human modifications. He glanced at Nova, who sat perched on the examination table, her iridescent skin catching the light from the displays. It is how we survived as a species, she explained, watching him work with those crystalline eyes. Our bodies learn, evolve, integrate. But the human components. She winced as another surge of pain shot through her system. They resist the adaptation. Harrison nodded, making another adjustment to the stabilizing field he'd rigged up to slow the deterioration of her implants. Because they're designed not to change. Human cybernetics are about control, predictability. Your biology wants to merge with the technology, but these components are fighting back. The door chimed, and Harrison tensed. Few people knew about his clinic's location, and fewer still would risk visiting during treatment hours. He checked the security feed and relaxed slightly. It was just Marcus Reeves, his supply contact from the colony's engineering corps. Doc, Marcus called out as he entered, then stopped short at the sight of Nova. His cybernetic eye whirred as it adjusted, taking in the scene. Well, this explains the unusual supply requests. He set down a crate of equipment, his gaze never leaving Nova. Quantum processors, biological interface modules, you're playing with fire here, Harrison. Someone has to, Harrison replied, already digging through the supplies. The colony's official clinics won't even look at hybrid cases like this. Marcus lowered his voice. Because they're smart. Word gets back to Stellaris Cybernetics about unauthorized modification of their tech, especially involving alien biology. He left the threat hanging. Nova stood, her movements graceful despite her failing systems. Your concern is noted, but unnecessary. Dr. Wade is not modifying Stellaris technology, he is helping my body reject it safely so that I might survive. And replace it with what? Marcus challenged. There's a reason Stellaris has a monopoly on cybernetic implants out here on the frontier. They're the only ones with the resources, the research. The willingness to let people die if they can't afford their prices. Harrison interrupted, his voice sharp. He held up a component from Nova's latest scan. Look at this. Their advanced technology is killing her because they never bothered to understand how it might interact with non-human biology. They just slapped their standard parts into refugees desperate enough to accept anything. Marcus rubbed his face, his own cybernetic eye glowing softly. You're right, of course. You usually are about these things. But Harrison. He glanced at the security feeds. There's been talk in the upper levels. Stellaris is sending a representative to the colony. Routine inspection, they say. Harrison's hands stilled over his work. When? 2 days. Maybe 3. Marcus headed for the door, then paused. Whatever you're planning to do here, do it fast. And he looked at Nova. Good luck. Both of you. After Marcus left, silence filled the clinic, broken only by the soft hum of medical equipment. Nova moved to stand beside Harrison, her presence a cool whisper in the cramped space. You risk much to help me, she said softly. Perhaps too much. Harrison turned to her, struck again by the otherworldly beauty of her features. I became a doctor to help people, not to follow corporate guidelines about who deserves to live or die. He gestured to his displays. Besides, what I'm learning from your biology, the way it adapts, evolves, integrates, it could revolutionize how we approach cybernetic medicine. Nova's expression softened. You speak of revolution while corporations hunt us. Her hand brushed his arm, sending a slight electric tingle through his skin. My people have a saying, innovation flowers best in shadow. Then we'll work in shadow, Harrison replied, already turning back to his diagnostics. But we need to solve this integration problem before Stellaris arrives. Your body wants to adapt to cybernetic implants, but it needs the right kind, something that can adapt with you instead of fighting against you. Nova watched as he began pulling up designs on his holographic display. You have an idea. More than an idea. Harrison's fingers flew across the controls, combining human cybernetic principles with what he'd learned about Novaran biology. What if instead of trying to force your body to accept rigid human technology, we create something new? Hybrid components that can evolve alongside your natural adaptations. Such a thing has never been attempted, Nova said, but her crystalline eyes shimmered with interest. Exactly. Harrison grinned, feeling the familiar rush of pushing medical boundaries. And if Stellaris finds out, they'll probably try to shut us down. But if it works. He met her gaze. It could help not just you, but all your people. Everyone stuck using incompatible technology because they have no other choice. Nova studied the designs taking shape before them, her failing implants pulsing with an almost hopeful rhythm. Then we must succeed, she said simply. Not just for my survival, but for all those who come after. As they worked through the night, neither of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the clinic's ventilation shaft, its corporate-grade sensors recording everything. Corporate shadows. The warning came at dawn. Harrison was deep in concentration, carefully adjusting the prototype neural interface he'd developed for Nova when his security system erupted in a cascade of alerts. Through the clinic's cameras, he watched as 3 sleek corporate shuttles descended from the colony's upper levels, their hulls bearing the distinctive silver and blue logo of Stellaris Cybernetics. They're early, Harrison muttered, his hands moving quickly to secure his research data. Nova emerged from the recovery room, her movements still graceful despite her deteriorating implants. The prototype interface had shown promise, but they needed more time they no longer had. How bad? She asked, her crystalline eyes scanning the security feeds. Before Harrison could respond, his comm unit crackled to life. Doc. Marcus's voice was breathless, urgent. They're doing a sector-wide sweep. Director Thaddeus himself is leading the inspection. They're checking every clinic, every workshop, even the unauthorized ones. Harrison's blood ran cold. Director Thaddeus was infamous throughout the frontier colonies, a corporate enforcer who'd built his reputation on crushing independent medical operations that threatened Stellaris's monopoly. If he was here personally. They know, Harrison said, meeting Nova's gaze. Someone must have spotted that drone. The clinic's main door chimed, not the usual alert, but the override sequence of colonial authority. Harrison moved quickly, activating the false wall that concealed his most sensitive equipment. Nova stepped into the hidden compartment without hesitation, her failing implants casting a dim glow in the darkness. The door slid open to reveal a tall, augmented figure flanked by corporate security drones. Director Thaddeus cut an imposing figure, his chrome-plated cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the clinic's lights. His right eye, a latest-generation Stellaris scanner, swept the room methodically. Dr. Harrison Wade, Thaddeus said, his voice carrying the artificial smoothness of vocal augmentation. Former head of experimental cybernetics at the Quantum Mechanics Institute. Brilliant career, until you decided corporate protocols were optional. Harrison forced himself to remain calm. Director. I wasn't aware Stellaris took such an interest in unauthorized frontier clinics. Oh, we take interest in many things, Doctor. Unauthorized clinics, yes. But also, unauthorized experiments. Particularly those involving proprietary technology and alien biology. Thaddeus stepped further into the clinic, his security drone spreading out to cover the exits. We've detected some rather unusual power signatures from this location. Care to explain? Frontier medicine requires improvisation, Harrison replied carefully. When you're dealing with salvaged tech and desperate patients. Spare me the humanitarian rhetoric. Thaddeus's cybernetic eye focused on Harrison with predatory intensity. We know you're harboring a Novaran refugee. One whose implants show signs of innovative modification. Behind the false wall, Nova's systems chose that moment to surge, sending a ripple of energy through the clinic's power grid. Thaddeus's smile widened fractionally. Ah. And there she is. He gestured to his drones. Search the premises. Thoroughly. Harrison stepped forward. You have no authority here. This is a private medical facility. Operating without a license, using stolen Stellaris technology. Thaddeus's artificial voice carried a note of triumph. But I'm not unreasonable, Doctor. Your work with Novaran biology, it's impressive. Stellaris could use someone with your talents. Official research, unlimited resources, full corporate protection. In exchange for what? Turn over the Novaran and your research data. Accept a position in our R&D division. Your past indiscretions will be forgotten. Before Harrison could respond, a commotion erupted outside the clinic. Through the open door, he could see a crowd gathering, miners, farmers, mechanics, all bearing the marks of his past work. Leading them was Marcus, his cybernetic eye glowing defiantly. Everything all right, Doc? Marcus called out, his casual tone belied by the tension in his stance. Whole lot of unofficial inspections happening today. Communities getting concerned about corporate overreach. Thaddeus's expression hardened as he assessed the growing crowd. His security drones shifted, weapon systems humming to life. Consider carefully, Dr. Wade, he said softly. Corporate authority supersedes colonial law. These people cannot protect you. As if in answer, Nova's voice rang out from behind the false wall, clear and musical despite her failing systems. But they can bear witness. The wall panel slid aside, revealing Nova in all her alien glory. Her crystalline implants pulsed with an ethereal light, and Harrison realized with a start that she was broadcasting, sending a signal that his instruments showed was reaching far beyond the colony. My people are watching, Director, she said, her translator giving her words an almost hypnotic quality. Watching as a human doctor risks everything to help those your corporation would discard. Watching as colonists stand together against corporate tyranny. Her crystalline eyes fixed on Thaddeus. How many shareholders know about your company's treatment of refugees? How many worlds are receiving this transmission? Thaddeus's cybernetic enhancements whirred as he processed this new threat. Outside, the crowd had grown larger, and Harrison could see more of his former patients arriving, humans and aliens alike, all bearing the marks of his underground work. This isn't over, Thaddeus said finally, his artificial voice tight with suppressed rage. He turned to leave, his drones following reluctantly. The board will hear about this. Yes, Nova agreed, her broadcast signal growing stronger. They will. The human element. The aftermath of Director Thaddeus's visit transformed Harrison's underground clinic into a fortress. Colony engineers worked through the night, reinforcing walls and upgrading security systems. Outside, a rotating guard of patients-turned-protectors kept watch, their own cybernetic enhancements scanning for corporate drones or surveillance devices. But inside the clinic's main chamber, Harrison faced a more urgent battle. Nova's condition had deteriorated rapidly during the confrontation, her hybrid implants rejecting her body's attempts at adaptation with increasing violence. "Your broadcast drained too much power," Harrison said, adjusting the stabilizing field around her neural cluster. The feedback damaged several key integration points. Nova lay on the examination table, her iridescent skin pale and dulled. "It was necessary," she whispered, her translator struggling to maintain coherence. "My people needed to see, to understand." They saw. Marcus entered the clinic, his cybernetic eye casting a soft blue glow in the dim light. Nova's transmission reached at least 12 colony worlds. Underground networks are already spreading the footage. Stellaris's stock is taking a hit. Harrison barely heard him, focused on the cascading failures in Nova's systems. The prototype interface he developed showed promise, but implementing it would require completely replacing her existing implants, a procedure no one had ever attempted with Novaran biology. "They'll retaliate," Marcus continued, watching Harrison work. "Thaddeus isn't known for accepting public humiliation." "Let them come," Harrison muttered, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. He pulled up the latest scan results, comparing them to his prototype designs. "We just need time. Nova's body wants to adapt, to evolve. If I can just give it the right framework." The clinic's lights flickered, then died. Emergency power kicked in immediately, but Harrison's heart was already racing. Through the security feeds, he watched as the colony's entire lower sector went dark. "Looks like time's up," Marcus said grimly. "They're shutting down the grid, sector by sector." Nova's hand caught Harrison's wrist, her touch sending that familiar electric tingle through his skin. "You have to finish it," she said, her crystalline eyes intense despite her weakening condition. "Not just for me. For everyone they've forced to accept inferior technology. For everyone they've denied care." Harrison squeezed her hand, then turned to Marcus. "How long can the backup generators last?" "Maybe 2 hours. Less if they start actively probing our defenses. Then we work fast." Harrison began pulling up his final designs, the ones he'd been refining in secret. "I need you to gather everyone with medical training. And get me Dr. Patel from the Miners Clinic, she has experience with emergency neural surgery." As Marcus hurried out, Harrison activated his full array of surgical equipment. The holographic displays filled with detailed schematics of his hybrid interface design, a revolutionary merger of human precision and Novaran adaptability. "What you're attempting," Nova said softly, watching the designs take shape, "it's never been done." "That's what they said about helping Novaran refugees too." Harrison managed a tight smile. "Sometimes the best innovations come from necessity." The next hour passed in a blur of intense concentration. As the colony's defenders reported increasing corporate pressure from above, Harrison led a team of volunteer medical staff through the most ambitious cybernetic procedure ever attempted on the frontier. They worked with the precision of a well-oiled machine, each person understanding that they were part of something historic. The prototype interface was a thing of beauty, crystalline lattices interwoven with quantum processors, designed to grow and evolve alongside Nova's natural biology. As Harrison carefully removed each failing implant, he replaced it with segments of the new system, watching in amazement as her body began to accept and integrate the technology almost immediately. "It's working," Dr. Patel breathed, monitoring the neural readings. "The integration rate is off the charts." Harrison allowed himself a moment of hope, then the clinic's defenses screamed a warning. Through the security feeds, he watched as multiple corporate shuttles descended toward their location, their weapon systems fully charged. "Director Thaddeus sends his regards," a cold voice announced over the colony's emergency channel. "This is your final opportunity to surrender the Novaran subject and all research data. Refuse, and we will consider this an act of corporate terrorism." Nova's eyes snapped open on the operating table, blazing with internal light. The new interface was only partially installed, but already her body was adapting, evolving, integrating in ways Harrison had only theorized possible. Energy coursed through the crystalline lattices, making them glow with increasing intensity. "They think they're dealing with simple refugees," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "They forgot why my people developed this technology in the first place." Before Harrison could respond, Nova sat up, the partially completed interface humming with power. Through their neural link, he felt her consciousness expanding, reaching out through the clinic's systems, through the colony's grid, touching every piece of cybernetic technology in range. "We were warriors once," she continued, her voice taking on an almost musical quality. "Before we chose peace. Before we fled. The ability to communicate with machines, to make them part of ourselves, it wasn't just for medical purposes." Outside, the corporate shuttles suddenly wavered in their descent, their weapons powering down without command. Through the colony's security network, Harrison watched in amazement as every piece of Stellaris technology began responding to Nova's influence. "I think," she said, turning to Harrison with a smile that combined alien beauty with technological power, "it's time to show Director Thaddeus exactly what your innovation has unleashed."